This adventurous story begins in the 19th century, a time when people were not very developed. All citizens preferred to live in a simple and traditional way. At that time, there were neither maps nor any knowledge of their place on Earth. Science had not progressed much, and people strongly believed in superstitions. Among these beliefs was the terrifying legend of a dangerous devil monster said to inhabit Earth. It was so deadly that anyone who looked into its eyes would not survive. Because of this, villagers never stepped out of their homes after dark. The story then shifts to a village where several women are seen floating flower-filled baskets with candles into the sea. They believe that whoever finds their basket will be the one they marry in the future. Among them is a woman named Nastasia, whose flower basket has never been found by anyone, meaning she is still searching for her life partner. One day, while standing by the seashore, Nastasia suddenly spots a dead body floating in the water. It turns out to be the daughter of a nearby kingdom's king. However, she is still breathing, meaning she isn't dead yet. But seeing this, Nastasia panics and begins drowning. She doesn't know how to swim and fears she will die too. Just then, a strange creature emerges from the water and pulls her to safety. It appears to be a hybrid between an animal and a human, an incredibly dangerous being with multiple horns all over its body. Nastasia had never seen such a creature before. Meanwhile, the king's daughter, though barely conscious, witnesses everything in her dazed state. No one knows anything about this mysterious horned creature. The next day, the king of the neighboring village finds his daughter washed ashore. Seeing that she is still alive, he is overjoyed and takes her in for treatment. However, the princess tells him that she has very little time left. Her dying wish is that after she passes away, a priest must pray over her body in the church for 3 days straight. She believes that only then will she learn the truth about the horned creature. But the priest must continue the prayer without any interruptions for the full 3 days. Saying this, the king's daughter breathes her last. Devastated by his daughter's passing, the king is heartbroken. However, determined to fulfill her final wish, he begins making arrangements for the 3-day prayer. The king placed his daughter's dead body in a nearby church and summoned a priest. He explained to the priest that he must pray continuously for 3 days. In return, the king promised to reward him with 1,000 gold coins. However, if the priest failed to complete the 3-day prayer, the king would have him executed. This meant the priest was trapped with no way out. Without wasting time, the priest entered the church and sat near the king's daughter's body. He soon began his prayers. However, within a few hours, strange things started happening. Strong winds howled inside the church, blowing out all the candles as if a violent storm was approaching. Realizing that something evil was at work, the priest quickly created a protective circle around himself, knowing that no dark spirit could enter it. But unfortunately for him, his luck was running out. Suddenly, the terrifying spirit of the king's daughter appeared inside the church. She looked horrifying and wasted no time in attacking the priest, killing him on the spot. Meanwhile, in the same village, a man named Jonathan was seen enjoying himself with a woman. However, her father found out about their relationship. Enraged, he confronted Jonathan and demanded that he marry his daughter immediately. Jonathan, however, quickly stood up and said, "I will definitely marry your daughter, but later." Saying this, he fled the scene to save himself. The woman's father sent his men to chase after Jonathan, but he was cunning and clever. He managed to escape by hopping onto a horse-drawn carriage. Jonathan had a dream, to create a complete map of the entire world, a map that would accurately represent the Earth. He had already mapped his own village with great precision. To assist him in his ambitious project, he had written letters to several friends, seeking their contributions. Meanwhile, the king, still mourning the loss of his daughter, ordered his black priest to take 1,000 gold coins to the church and give them to the priest praying for his daughter. This black priest was extremely cunning and manipulative, an expert in deceiving people for his own gain. As the black priest entered the church with the coins, he was in for a shock. The original priest was dead. A protective circle surrounded his body, and a holy symbol was scattered on the ground. Seeing this terrifying sight, the black priest was left in utter disbelief. The black priest immediately realized that all these events were caused by an evil spirit. Even the original priest, despite using his protection cross, could not defend himself. This meant that the spirit that attacked him was far more terrifying and dangerous than anyone had imagined. In his fear, the black priest dropped his pouch of gold coins, scattering them all over the floor. Just then, the Maroon brothers arrived. These two greedy brothers were notorious for capturing and looting people. Seeing so many gold coins, they eagerly began collecting them for themselves. The black priest warned them, saying, "We shouldn't be doing this. This place is cursed and surrounded by dangerous spirits. One of those spirits killed our priest." However, the Maroon brothers ignored him and continued to gather the coins. Realizing the danger, the Black Priest decided they needed to seal off the place to prevent the spirits from harming anyone else. He left to fix the broken roof of the church, while the Maroon brothers waited below. Suddenly, one of the brothers slipped, and a sharp wooden shard pierced his eyes. He screamed in agony. The Black Priest instantly understood, this was no accident. The evil spirit had attacked him, determined to keep everyone away from the church. Terrified, the Black Priest and the Maroon brothers fled the church and rushed straight to the king, who had arrived with his entire army near the church. The Black Priest informed the king that a dangerous spirit had attacked the Maroon brothers and was guarding his daughter's dead body inside. He explained that the spirit would not allow anyone to enter the church. At first, the king was skeptical and struggled to believe what he was hearing. But within moments, a swarm of black crows began circling the church. Seeing black crows flying at night was an ominous and terrifying sign. Witnessing this eerie scene, the villagers panicked and ran for their lives. The king, now fully convinced of the supernatural threat, commanded, "Seal off this entire church. The evil spirit must never escape. My beloved daughter's body will remain inside forever." On the Black Priest's advice, the king agreed that they needed to abandon the cursed church and build a new one elsewhere. The Black Priest led a ritual and gathered all the villagers to start prayers for the new church. However, as they prayed, numerous spirits began to appear, trying to stop them from completing the construction. Some of these spirits were extremely dangerous and could take people away alive. However, the good spirits wanted the new church to be built so that all the evil forces from the old church would vanish. The villagers gathered together and engaged in prayer, determined to cleanse their town. At that moment, the same horned man appeared on top of the old church, the mysterious being who had helped many people before. He silently observed everything but, for some unknown reason, never revealed himself to the people. Jonathan, who had been traveling the world to create a map of it, eventually arrived in that very town with his friends. As they sat down to eat, Jonathan's companions told him about an unsettling incident. A while ago, they had visited this town with their dear priest companion, but he mysteriously vanished. When they had first entered the town, they found shelter in a house where an old woman lived. She had kindly invited them to stay for the night. However, their priest companion felt an eerie presence in the house. Suspicious, he started investigating the place. Then, suddenly, the old woman attacked the priest, revealing herself to be a terrifying spirit. She lifted the priest into the air and flew toward the ocean with him. In the water's reflection, the true form of the spirit was revealed. It was none other than the king's daughter. This meant that the spirit of the king's daughter had escaped the church and was now spreading its curse everywhere. Since that night, their priest companion had been missing. Jonathan listened to the entire story but refused to believe it. He had always put his faith in science rather than the supernatural. In his mind, demons and ghosts were nothing more than myths. Later, as Jonathan rode his carriage through the forest near the town, something terrifying happened. His horses suddenly started running wildly, as if sensing danger. When Jonathan looked around, he saw strange, monstrous creatures chasing them. These creatures were unlike anything he had ever seen, clearly unnatural, as if someone was controlling them. Jonathan quickly grabbed his weapons and began attacking them from his carriage. However, there were too many of them. Fighting them off was nearly impossible. The beasts leaped onto the carriage, violently trying to overturn it. In desperation, Jonathan pushed his horses to go even faster, but then, disaster struck. The carriage caught fire. Realizing he had no other choice, Jonathan steered the burning carriage toward the town, hoping that the townspeople could help. As he entered the town, the creatures were still chasing him. Eventually, he lost control and crashed into the muddy streets. Covered in dirt, Jonathan looked up and saw the Black Priest standing nearby. However, instead of helping him, the Black Priest began shouting in anger. "This man is a deceiver," he yelled to the villagers, holding up a book. "He is one of the demons. And this could be a threat to the people of our town." That's why the villagers captured Jonathan and imprisoned him. Jonathan finally decided that he would start his map-making work from this very town. So, he stayed in the village for several days. Now, the Black Priest wanted to take the place of the king, meaning he had his eyes on the king's throne. However, he was highly troubled by the king's spiritual practices because the king kept saying that he could bring his daughter back to life by returning her soul to her body. For this, the king invited several priests to try and perform rituals to revive her. When the king heard about Jonathan, an artist who could make different types of maps, he called him to the palace. The king offered him a task, to create a complete map of the town, including the dangerous church. The king was determined to save his daughter at any cost. In return, he promised Jonathan many gold coins. However, the Black Priest was not pleased with this at all. He wanted the dangerous spirits to remain trapped inside the church and never let it be opened. That's why he contacted the Maroon brothers directly. The Black Priest started threatening them, saying that he knew they had stolen all the gold coins last time. If the king found out about this, he would have them executed. Fearing the consequences, the Black Priest forced the Maroon brothers to do his bidding. Their main goal was to prevent the reopening of the dangerous old church because the king was doing everything possible to open it and return his daughter's soul to her body. Now, following the Black Priest's orders, the Maroon brothers approached Jonathan and started telling him different stories. One of the brothers told him that when a priest from their village went inside the church to pray in front of the king's daughter, her spirit appeared and started attacking him mercilessly. The spirit had grown tree branches all around, using them to continuously attack the priest. The second brother then told another story, claiming that even though the king's daughter had become a ghost, the priest knew how to control her. He somehow managed to trap her spirit inside a coffin and then destroyed the coffin with his weapon, breaking the curse and ending her existence. However, Jonathan did not believe either of them. He thought both brothers were just heavily drunk and making up stories. A little while later, Jonathan noticed that both brothers were suddenly changing. Their entire bodies were transforming into terrifying creatures. Within moments, they became extremely dangerous. At that moment, the spirit of the king's daughter also appeared. She was the one controlling them. Jonathan, who had never believed in such things before, now realized that it was all real. He quickly created a protective circle to keep himself safe. By then, the entire place had caught fire, and soon, countless dark spirits began appearing from all directions. Jonathan found himself transported to another dimension, a realm where the gods of demons resided. Now, a monstrous evil god, with multiple eyes, stood before Jonathan. The evil god gave Jonathan an important task, to find out everything about the horned creatures by any means necessary. If he failed, the evil god would kill him. As soon as the evil god finished speaking, Jonathan lost consciousness. When he woke up, he found himself near the old church, ready to begin mapping the area. The king and his men were completely unaware of his actions, but the Maroon brothers had figured out what Jonathan was planning, so they began following him closely. While working on the church, Jonathan got distracted and almost fell from a great height, but one of his companions managed to save him just in time. Jonathan's companion believed that the evil spirits inside the church would not allow him to complete the map and might even try to kill him. That's why he tried to stop Jonathan from going any further. Meanwhile, one of the Maroon brothers secretly buried the stolen gold coins in the ground because he didn't want the truth to be revealed to the king. However, a few days later, when the Maroon brothers returned to check on the buried gold, they discovered that someone had stolen it. The older brother suspected that either Jonathan or his younger brother might have taken it. Determined to uncover the truth, the older Maroon brother set off on his own. To kill Jonathan, the older Maroon brother captured Jonathan's companion and tortured him to extract information about Jonathan's location. However, after some time, due to a momentary distraction, Jonathan's companion managed to escape. He now realized that all these people were trying to kill Jonathan. So, he quickly found Jonathan and warned him about everything, urging him to leave town immediately. Jonathan began gathering his belongings, preparing to escape from the town. Meanwhile, his companion went to an old friend named Nastia and asked her to come with him. Nastia was the first person who had ever seen the horned creature. After much thought, she finally agreed to go with him. Back in the village, the Black Priest was manipulating the people, turning them against the king. He desired the throne for himself, and since the king was failing to solve the village's problems, the people were starting to lose faith in him. Jonathan and his companion were trying to leave the village and had already packed their belongings onto a boat. Meanwhile, the Maroon brothers, suspicious of each other over the stolen gold coins, got into a brutal fight. In a fit of rage, the older Maroon brother killed his younger brother. At that moment, Nastia arrived and witnessed everything. The villagers, hearing the commotion, were about to arrive at the scene. Seeing no other way out, the older Maroon brother placed the murder weapon in Nastia's hand and pretended that she was the one who had killed his younger brother. When the villagers arrived and saw the situation, they assumed that Nastia had committed the crime and that she was possessed by a demon. Enraged, they began to beat her severely and took her back to the village as a prisoner. Meanwhile, as Jonathan was packing his belongings, he accidentally fell into the water. However, something unknown saved him, though he couldn't see what it was. Later, when he reached the shore, he found pieces of a creature's body, the same creature that had saved Nastia's life earlier. Determined, Jonathan went directly to the king and confronted him, saying, "I know you didn't call me just to create a map. You want me to find your daughter's murderer and kill them." The king, desperate, begged Jonathan to find his daughter's killer by any means necessary. Back in the village, the people were preparing to execute Nastia, but the king arrived just in time and tried to stop them. However, the Black Priest had completely manipulated the villagers, and they no longer trusted the king's words. The enraged villagers attacked the king from behind, knocking him unconscious. Now, Jonathan was also considered a criminal. The villagers captured him and locked him inside a dungeon. Inside the cave, Nastia was also present. After talking to her, Jonathan learned that Nastia knew about the horned creature with many markings on its body. She had met it multiple times. However, Jonathan was desperate to escape, so he took out his map and started analyzing the situation. Meanwhile, Jonathan's companion, who was spying on the Black Priest, overheard his sinister plan. The Black Priest intended to kill the king and take his place, with the older Maroon brother sharing power. Realizing the urgency, Jonathan's companion rushed to rescue him and helped him escape from the cave. Now, Jonathan had to find the horned creature at any cost to save Nastia's life. At the same time, the Black Priest led the villagers to execute Nastia. However, he needed to prove that Nastia was possessed by an evil spirit. So, he tied her to a boat and declared that if she sank, it would mean she was indeed cursed. The Black Priest's followers secretly made holes in the boat to ensure it would sink, convincing the villagers that Nastia was a damned soul. Jonathan and his companion raced against time to save Nastia, but they feared they might be too late. Just then, from the other side of the river, the terrifying horned creature emerged from the top of a massive tree. Seeing it, the villagers mistook it for a demon and rushed to kill it, believing that this monster was the reason the evil god was tormenting them. Jonathan, however, hurried directly to the church, where the king's daughter's body was kept. Upon entering, he was shocked to see that her body remained unchanged. This meant that all the rumors about her resurrection were completely false. Suddenly, an unknown man appeared from behind, attempting to steal Jonathan's map. However, Jonathan quickly attacked his leg and stopped him. This man was none other than the old priest who had come to the church many years ago to pray. Upon Jonathan's questioning, the priest revealed everything. Years ago, when he had first come to the village, he had fallen deeply in love with the king's daughter. When the village girls performed a traditional ritual of floating candles in buckets on the river, he deliberately caught the king's daughter's candle in his hands, which symbolized that she would marry him. However, the king's daughter was incredibly wealthy. The priest was very poor and wanted to win the princess by any means. Out of shame, he created and wore a very strange costume. This costume was none other than that of the horned creature, which meant that the creature was, in reality, just the priest pretending to be a terrifying beast. This way, the princess could not recognize him, and he was able to spend time with her. But one day, someone, wearing the same costume, murdered the princess. The priest himself was unaware of who had done it. Suddenly, from behind, the Black Priest attacked Jonathan on the head, making him unconscious. When Jonathan regained consciousness, the Black Priest revealed that it was he who had worn the priest's costume and killed the princess. His plan was to weaken the king, so he could take over his throne. Now that Jonathan knew the truth, the Black Priest wanted to kill him as well. The Black Priest told Jonathan, "You are going to die, so say your final prayer." Meanwhile, the villagers had realized that the terrifying horned creature was never real, it was just a costume. Enraged, they turned against the Black Priest and advanced toward him to kill him. The Black Priest drew his weapon and was about to take Jonathan's life when suddenly, a divine cross fell from above, instantly killing the Black Priest. Since all the villagers witnessed this event, they considered it a miracle. Meanwhile, Nastia, who was drowning in the river, was suddenly saved by an unknown force and safely brought to shore. The villagers now realized that the king was right all along, and the Black Priest was the real villain. The older Maroon brother, trying to escape the village, was suddenly kicked hard by his own horse, killing him instantly. After Nastia was rescued safely, the priest grew closer to her. Nastia, on the other hand, reunited with Jonathan's companion, whom she loved. The king took his deceased daughter from the church, performed the necessary rituals, and gave her a proper funeral. With everything back to normal, Jonathan set off on a journey to create an excellent map of the world. And with that, our story comes to an end.